almost 9 years since we got a Captain America movie. Just let that sink in for a second. I'm kind of in shock. The last time we got a Cap movie, it was in 2016, which feels like a generation ago. Marvel is a completely different beast now, where the Avengers we knew and loved are gone, replaced with cheap cutouts and replacements and villains that they desperately are trying to convince us are heroes. It's been almost 6 years since the infamous S.H.I.E.L.D. changed hands so Steve could run off with Peggy Carter and peace out from the world and the role he had played for the better part of a decade. And it's been 4 since the new Captain America yelled at politicians and demanded that they stop calling terrorists terrorists. Remember all that? I sure haven't forgotten about it. And here we are, about a month out from the release of Brave New World, because that doesn't sound ominous at all, and my concerns continue to pile up. I've already talked about my concerns with Sam Wilson as Cap in particular, because he was a wonderful Falcon, we all loved him as Falcon, and we didn't need to see the role changed. What was so bad about Falcon that he needed to evolve into the role of Cap? Falcon was already an awesome superhero in his own right. If they really wanted to showcase more of his character, they could have given us a Falcon movie, and I absolutely would have watched it. Despite the fact that Sam came into the MCU about halfway through Phase 2, we all liked him. He was a great addition to Steve Rogers' Cap, and all of us would have been happy to see more of him in that role. But instead, we got this. And I might have been okay with the idea of Sam taking over if the Falcon and the Winter Soldier hadn't happened, but it did, and here we are. Aside from the figure that Sam has turned Cap into, the timeline of this movie is absolutely insane, as I mentioned earlier. Julius Ono was hired to direct the film after Anthony Mackie was once again confirmed as Sam Wilson following the 2021 show. And we got our first look at the new title of the film, New World Order. Again, because that's not ominous at all, given the current Hollywood objectives. It seems as if Captain America, Brave New World, is set to be yet another flop for Marvel, and another reason that fans will lose interest in the current MCU. But let's go over some details as to why this is. We're hearing a lot of stories lately about the production of Captain America 4, and one of the common things that has been shared is that a few test screenings were had in preparation for the film's release, and that all of them were negative. 2 different versions of the film were played, and both of them were rejected by those watching. The same is true for the 3rd and final round of test screenings. Of course, when your finished product is soundly rejected by a paying audience, this of course leads to panic and corrections in order to have the film appeal to the mainstream audiences. The concerns of the audiences stemmed from the action scenes primarily, and the lack of chemistry between Sam and his apparent love interest. I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised that there is a love interest at all in this film, because Marvel movies recently have seemed to be moving away from the traditional love interest that most of the other films had. But it looks as if the biggest issue with how audiences responded had to do with the political content of the film. Audiences called it boring rather than divisive, which I find kind of hilarious. I kind of think it's time we stop being angry about political messaging and start laughing at it instead. It'll just save us a lot of mental and emotional energy that would be better devoted to other things. Additionally, audiences found the political messaging went a long way to slowing the movie down, and that it lacked nuance, which was an interesting way of saying that only one specific ideology and point of view was represented. Of course, this leads to the reason for the lack of confidence many have in the movie's success, and that is due in large part to the extensive reshoots that the film had to go through. Several major scenes were reshot, and although every movie goes through rounds of reshoots in preparation for a film's release, Captain America 4's appeared to be far more extensive than any other MCU film. According to the article, most reshoots last for around 6 weeks, but this negative reception of the fans extended the reshoot time frame to months, which has never happened before. As a result of these integral reshoots, the film was constantly delayed. Captain America 4 was set to release in the summer of 2024, but then pushed back, leaving only Deadpool and Wolverine as the focal point of the summer theater season. This is especially concerning because filming for the movie wrapped up in 2023, right before the writer's strike took place, during which the test screenings happened and the feedback called for a near-total overhaul. In November 2023, an industry insider by the name of Jeff Snyder revealed that 3 main sequences were being cut and reshoots were planned from January until May or June of 2024, which was the original release date. Those reshoots ended up lasting until August 2024, which is a staggering amount of time. The problem with reshoots is that they can be a double-edged sword. They can make a movie better, but too many of them can indicate a lack of direction for the story. And if the story doesn't have direction or vision or ideas, then what's the reason to make it in the first place? Combine that with a brand new villain in the form of Giancarlo Esposito, and the already iffy prospect of a Captain America movie that has no Steve Rogers, as well as Marvel's general, shall we say, inconsistency in the post-Endgame phase, well, I think fans, myself included, have good reason to be concerned. As of a month or two ago, the film was going through reshoots again, as confirmed by Esposito. Now, maybe if this movie had someone like the Russo brothers to direct it, because their track record with Cap films and ensemble casts is excellent, it might inspire more confidence. But directors like Julius Onah, who do not have a proven track record with Marvel, doesn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence for the success of this movie. This, of course, could all be unfounded, as there were quite a few unknown directors of the MCU turned into big names, the Russo brothers included. But we won't know if that gamble will pay off until the film releases. And then, of course, there is Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross, who has given fans of established IPs enough reason to dislike him in recent years before ever joining the MCU.
I need to do this.
Me too.
By the way, Han Solo and Indiana Jones want their dignity back. And this all leads to the bottom line, which is the current cost of this film. A lot of Marvel productions in the last few years have overblown their budgets, like She-Hulk and the Marvels. $200 million seems to be the average price tag, but given that this film has now gone through 3 rounds of reshoots, rewrites, and retooling, the budget has ballooned to $400 million plus, throwing it among the most expensive Marvel movies ever made. Not only is this a staggering sum, the reasons for its costs make me very nervous for the success of this film. I hope I'm wrong, but the recent changes that Marvel has made to its roster, along with the clear lack of vision for anything post-Endgame, and the recent ousting of Jonathan Majors as the new big bad, paint a clear picture that the MCU is scrambling for control. They can't do it now, but I can't help but think that it might have been a far better idea to simply cancel this film altogether and begin this year with the Fantastic Four movie as a way of introducing characters that haven't been seen in the MCU before and who aren't leaving funny tastes in our mouths. Fantastic Four would have been a great way to get the fans excited for the future of the MCU again, as their recent productions of Echo, The Marvels, and even Agatha have not inspired much confidence in the vision of the brand and their desire to entertain fans going forward. The magic has disappeared, and until Kevin Feige is able to jumpstart the brand again with something that inspires confidence, it's hard to believe that this film is going to be a success. But even before all these revelations, the film didn't have a great chance given the source material that's fueling it. If we look back at earlier phases of the MCU, Bucky was clearly poised to take over for Steve before time and politics decided otherwise. Given that Bucky is actually a super soldier, and probably the last interesting character of the MCU has right now, this makes a bit more sense when the villain that Captain America will be taking on in this movie is Red Hulk. Instead, they jumped over what could have been a really interesting storyline and decided to go with a new era of comics that wasn't all that popular. I don't know if this is just laziness, a belief that no matter what Marvel puts out, fans will go and see it, or if it's truly just pandering. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter the reasons why, just that these projects exist. For the record, I think it was a good idea to put the brakes on in 2024 and clear the MCU calendar of all the dead weight in the form of Echo and Agatha all along. But there's still quite a bit of sewage that needs to be sifted through in order for the MCU to get back to peak storytelling form and traditional fan service. After doing some thinking about it, a part of me is wondering if they shouldn't have just recasted Steve Rogers, allowing Chris Evans to bow out, and simply go with a younger actor that can embody him. But we'll never know now, and given everything I've seen from Marvel in the last few years, I'm not altogether convinced that this idea wouldn't have been ruined too. Given that the MCU is relying heavily on the previous phases of the MCU and characters from years ago in order to keep the dwindling interest of the fans, it doesn't really inspire much hope for the future for a brand that was once a creative juggernaut. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that this movie's great. I hope this spy thriller that they're trying to pull off gets legs and completely knocks it out of the park. But given photos like this one, where we're supposed to believe that a completely human Sam Wilson is able to stand up to one of the strongest beings in the MCU, doesn't fill me with much confidence. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for the new Captain America movie? Or are you dreading it Or could you really just not care less at all? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and let the conversations begin. Until next time, everyone.